Hey everybody, and welcome back to another book review. So I've been looking forward to this book, new release for 2024. I had read the other two in the series, and the series was concluding, and that is The Eternal Ones, which is the third book in the Gilded Ones series by Namina Forna. And I was super excited, just like when you're kind of left on a cliffhanger in the second book in a series and you're like, I just want to know what happens next. So was very excited to see where she took the story, and I wasn't disappointed by the story. So as you may remember, either from past book reviews or if you've read the book or read the other books in the series, we are mostly following the story of Dika, who is a young woman who has been raised in a world where women are seen as lesser than, women are to be submissive at all times, and she discovers that she has these powers, for lack of a better word, that makes her ideal for being a warrior. And her whole process is finding out who she is within this warrior world, but also discovering that the lies that she's been fed about these gods, and or at least in her experience it was just like one god that they called Ayomo, and come to find out that that one god is actually 4 gods, and then it turned into 8 gods, and just like a lot of different things that were just a bunch of lies in her world. And so she is continuing on that journey, and so at the end of the last book, or kind of in the middle or beginning of this book, we discover that she is actually supposed to also be a god or a goddess. And she has to face, in this book, she's facing the process of ascending to being in this new role, facing the process of developing herself as this new person, really. And I wanted it to be much better than what it was. It really got to a point where it was like we were kind of doing a lot. I felt that the book was also kind of rushed. It seemed like it's like, okay, all these ideas that I wanted to flesh out more, perhaps either in a longer series or maybe in like a little like mini book or something like that. There was a lot of things that I was just like, this needs a little bit more fleshing out because I'm lost. There was also a lot within the context of like, okay, we've got all these characters that we've met over the years, and they're all coming back together to support this big war that's about to happen. And I just like, even though I just read the second book last year, I still really struggled like remembering who everybody was, and like what their relationships were. It was just a lot going on close to the end, but for me, really, it was just a lot of or it seemed like the author just kind of threw everything into the book to wrap everything up in 400 pages. And I wanted it to be just so much more than what it was. It just really fell short for me. So because of that, I gave it a 2.75, not quite a 3. And I was looking at some of the other reviews for it online, and everybody's, like really excited about the new book and seems pretty pleased, lots of 4s and stuff. But a couple other people said that, the writing just didn't really improve, and I could not agree more. I feel like the author is trying to find her voice in telling the story, because the story is told from first person. And so it was a lot of just like natural speaking, normal speaking, very modern, just the way that we, talk to each other. And then occasionally there would be like a more robust word. And it just didn't seem natural to either the characters or the author. It was like these weird words that were just dropped in there, especially when the characters, especially Dika, the main character, when she's described as having a lower education. She's not as educated as some of the other people in their country, partially because she's a woman, but also just because of where she grew up, right? She grew up in this kind of backwoods town, for lack of a better explanation. And so it just seemed very odd that she would be, in her conscious mind of telling the story, it seemed odd that she would be using these very big, robust words. It just kind of felt like a little bit of, the author wrote a story, threw it through some AI, and that's what AI came up with, and then blended it together, and so we get this weird, it's just kind of jolted. The first book did not feel that way. There was a little bit of that, but it was not so jarring as when we got into the second book. It became glaringly apparent to me with the vocabulary, and then this book, it was just like every paragraph had to have one big word in it, and I was just like, it's weird, and also would I have used that in that context or description or whatever it is? So yeah, I thought the author could do better, but I really do question if maybe she was rushed for a deadline and she just had to get something out, and this is what we came up with. That said, I do still think it would make a very interesting, TV series, something that, especially because, there's only 3 books, you can really kind of dive and flesh out, and with all the different characters and main characters and all that, I really feel like there's a lot that could be fleshed out in a TV show that might not have been fleshed out in the books or even in a movie. At first I was like, maybe, you could kind of Hunger Games this, because it does feel a little bit Hunger Gamesy. But then I was like, no, there's so much here. And I love the diversity of the story. Every character is, like when you read it, she's describing things in context to the way that the real world is. She talks about, this group is from the north, and so the northern tribes or the northern groups are more pale, and one of the characters, Britta, she, like, if you read it out loud, she naturally sounds kind of Scottish, or maybe even Irish. And another character, talk about him being from the east, and so he has that kind of darker straight hair, and just very Asian in description, without her ever saying, they're Asian, they're white, they're this, that, or the other. They're just described, and it makes sense in the context of the real world that we live in. So I do like the diversity of the characters, the diversity of the main character almost being kind of in this weird, like, biracial context of, like, she is not human. Let's start there. You don't really figure out that she's not human until much later, but she's not human, but in her human form, she's pretty much described as biracial, and how she's kind of being ostracized because of her biracialness, which I just think is interesting, and makes sense for the world that we live in. The ostracization of some people, or as some folks have felt that they have been ostracized based on being biracial. I think she kind of addresses that in the book. She also talks about different genders, just male, female, but also those who are non-binary. She has a different word for it in the story that goes with the language of the country of Otera, or the kingdom of Otera. and whatever their language is, there is a description of a third gender, and that it's accepted. You know, and not here to debate whether or not that is right or wrong. I just think it's very interesting the way that she kind of worked our society into the descriptions in her book. And I thought that was very very clever and very simple. You know, it wasn't odd. It didn't read as odd. It was just a thing. And it was just a thing and the norm. And I really appreciate that she, the author, tried to make everyone feel represented and seen in the story. And that doesn't always happen in novels, but especially as a novel that is recently written, modernly written. I thought is really good. So with her diversity piece. So yeah, there you have it. This is a long book review, but I was so excited for this book, and I just let down a little bit. But that said, I do still think the series deserves a shot at being a TV series, or something. Definitely a TV series, just to expand and explore. So there you have it. My book review on The Eternal Ones by Namina Forna. As always, please continue to send book suggestions. I think I mentioned this a couple reviews ago, but over spring break, I bought a crap ton of books that are on the list. So I will be working through those, and very excited to read those. I've gotten a couple other suggestions that I've added to the list as well, so looking forward to eventually getting to those. And my book club is on hiatus for a couple months. We're taking a little break, so that gives me a chance to read more on the pile and not just having to mix in the book club books as well. But I'm looking forward to continuing to read all the different suggestions that you all have had. So thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next book review. Bye!